Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to another session here at the Kickpod dojo. I am your host slash sensei, TJ Williams, giving you the insider of my martial arts journey, discussing and analyzing certain martial arts based subjects, and highlighting martial artists of all martial arts styles all around the world, past, present, and future. All right. So, of course, we're into the new year, and it's wonderful. This is my second episode of the new year. And of course, it's been so wonderful so far. I mean, we get snow over where I'm at, but I don't know where everybody else's weather is. I don't know, it could be sunny, could be windy, but we get snow, but at least it's not bad. All right. Okay, today's guest is coming from Aurora, Ontario, Canada. Of course, he's the owner operator at Shaolin Martial Arts Canada. May I introduce everybody to Tim Wakefield? How are we doing?
I'm Tofa. Right, doing good.
Wonderful. All right, so how is it over in Canada?
Much the same as you. We're not that far apart, so it's cold, snow. I think it's minus 17 first in Celsius. Celsius, and very important to mention that. Um, you know, it's cold.
Yeah, I prefer going down south where it's hot. I get more energy.
Mm,
All right.
understood.
All right, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna get in that little time machine. All right, so I kind of like the Back to the Future type time machine. DeLorean, basically flux capacitor, 88 miles per hour, going straight to the past. All right, so I'm basically gonna do the driving, but you're gonna give the directions.
Fair
All right.
enough.
All right. So of course the first question I usually ask guests is describe yourself before martial arts.
Describe. Sorry.
I describe yourself how you were before martial
Oh,
arts.
before martial arts. Well, I was young. I mean, I started martial arts when I was about 10 and a half, going 11.
Mm,
And at the time, I was raised by, artists, right? My parents are artists, right?
mm,
Freelance cartoonists and whatnot. And so, we weren't exactly the most affluent family. But I was raised in an artistic environment. So everything was about being creative and drawing. And I was an aspiring cartoonist myself. My
oh,
goal was to be, the next Jim Davis, basically. And I've met Jim Davis. I have actually a copy here of his first printing of the first book of Garfield signed by him,
oh
right?
my,
Yeah, it's right on the shelf over there.
yeah,
And he, that was a big inspiration for me. It was comic strip artists, Heathcliff, Marmaduke, Hagar the Horrible, Animal Crackers, right? Mother Goose and Grimm, you name a cartoon, and I was very interested in style. And eventually, I developed my own little style, which I call it Larsonism,
arsons.
right? Larsonism, because Gary Larson, the guy who does Far Side, right, has just a
Yeah,
complete, absolute wit about him. So I developed a style based on that, and I thought, what a great name, Larsonism. It has so many different twisted meanings you could draw from it. So that's where I started off with that, and because of that, creative life, minded people didn't fit very well in the school system. So naturally, it's like painting a big target on your back. Hey, kick me, right? And many people took that opportunity to do so. So school for me was not a very fun place to be, right? As kind of always the odd one out. I got beat up a lot, and yeah, so in order to outrun the problems, right, my parents would change schools for me every 2 years. It didn't help that the school system decided to put me in a special ed program, which was a pilot project back then.
mm,
So that just exacerbated the reputation thing even more. And keep in mind that in Ontario, special ed back then wasn't specialized education for people who were slow learners. It was basically the person, or even a place where you take those who are hyperachievers. That's where you stick your problem kids, right? The ones you don't know what to do with, and just
yeah,
throw them over there. So if you weren't a troublemaker going in, you certainly were going to become one coming out, right?
yeah.
So I got thrown in with these characters, and just kind of, your name now became retard or loser for the next one. Well, no one knew who you were. You're just retard loser class, right?
Mm,
And so that carried on up to about grade 7, when some kid decided that he didn't like the loser kid getting better marks than him in his English class. So he went on a nice little precursor to MMA, and on me, from the front of the room to the back of the room into the closet, boom, 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 4 teachers to pull him off me, and I said, that's it, I need to do something, right? So I knew my dad was in the U.S. Navy, back in the Nam period. He didn't actually deploy over there, but he was part of it. And so I said, well, they must have taught you some hand-to-hand stuff. And he goes, no, we only learned how to shoot things 20 miles away with a cannon. It's like, okay, makes sense. You're on a boat, right? So yeah, but and being of the hippie generation, neither one of my parents were terribly interested in me learning anything about fighting. All right. So, when I proposed the idea of going to martial arts, they went, nah, you're not doing that. Turned another cheek. I said, yeah, they did. See, there's the bruise. Right. Yeah. So eventually I found a way to trick my parents into getting me into martial arts. See, they're very fastidious when it comes to timing. Right. If they will never be late for an appointment. So I arranged an orientation lesson with one of the places in town after the beating, and I basically told my parents about the appointment 15 minutes beforehand, and my parents go, "Oh my God, we have to go!" So we went. The instructor knew my case, and he sort of advocated for me and got me into the program. So that was Fredville Art Studios self-defense back then. Only 3 years after it opened or maybe it was only 2 years after it opened in Ontario.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
everything you're saying is pretty much how my life is. I mean, I was of course you say the slow kind of kid, but I was creative too, but it seems like I didn't know how to use it properly. But I no, I could have like changed all that. I mean, I'm just thinking that going back to the past, changing all that, and then being how I am today, it's like having the confidence to be like what I want to be. I mean, that's pretty much how I got into martial arts. I mean, that kind of pretty much broke me out of my should I say my ADHD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
I mean
well,
that's one.
yeah. Well, I mean, but it's after about a year of doing the martial arts, I got faced by the bully again, right?
Oh
And he,
boy.
he tried to attack me a second time. Didn't work out so well for him that time, right? I had some other ideas I expressed upon him, and it was actually I was smart about it though, right? We had this thing called elective programs, right, in the school system, where for a period of a month, on the last Friday of every month, half a school day, you got bussed off to some activity you signed up for, and you could spend the rest of your school day doing that, right? So of course, my teacher was offering classes for students I signed up for, and he says to me, Tim, you can't come. Yeah, right. This is for me to get new students. I went, yeah, but see that guy fifth down the list? Yeah, that's the reason why I'm here. And he goes, come on in, right? So I kind of did this first smartest thing about this is I chose the battlefield, right?
Okay.
Right, and so he, this the bully, I'll just call him Jay for sure. I don't want to give his name. So Jay comes to me and he says, oh, I see you're signed up for this class. I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Haha, you think you'll learn more than me? It's like, yeah, okay. And at this point, no one knew I was into this, right? So we get there, and he, his dad worked for Coca-Cola, so Jay brings out his big red Coke outfit and wears tracksuit and all, and I reach in and pull out my black gi with the patches all over it, and
Oh.
the purple belt, and he goes, "Oh my God, you go here?" I said, "Yeah." Right. So next thing we're paired with each other. My Shifu at the time said, "You guys are pairing with each other." So
Oh.
we were doing this thing called combination number three, which is anyone who does Kempo knows what I'm talking about, at least East Coast Kempo, right? And so I went to do it on him, and of course it wasn't working, right? And he was resisting. So I went back to my teacher and go, "It's not working." And Master Chong looks at me and goes, "Tim, are you doing combination three?" I went, "Yes." He goes, "No, no, no. Are you doing combination three? Don't come back to me until you've done combination three." Okay. Did I just get permission?
Oh.
And so I let him have it, and he got combination three all right. And he didn't like it. He got up, chased me around. Next, I mean, kind of freestyle mode, just warding him off and kicking him, and going like, "Hey, wait a minute! I'm actually surviving this. I'm winning." So that was an inspirational turn of moment because this is where the baseline of people's confidence. I was down here, right? After that day, I was up here.
Oh.
I'm going like, wait a minute, there's and so the thought struck me like, okay, how much more can I learn about this? All right. So I learned a lot more. I stuck around a long time, right? And I did as much training as I possibly could, and eventually got to the point. It's like, well, if I could learn to teach someone else how to do this, right, and make them feel this power, this confidence, and the not the need to not be afraid of stuff, then you know I will have done something good, right? So just teach one other person like that. Well, it ended up turning into a career that would have helped thousands.
Oh boy.
So yeah, so
Oh,
that's kind of how it started.
yeah. So definitely what you said, combination three, that sounds like what we do in Chuck Norris system. We call it one step. So somebody throws a punch,
Mm.
and of course we have to do these combinations.
Uh,
And
Yeah, combinations are a pre-scripted concept and principle to attack and defense. That's my son.
mm,
They are, there's 108 of them all together, right?
mm,
You have each one represents a different way of getting around the straight front punch, right? Now
okay.
they can be adapted from the front punch to other things. You can start changing it to weapon attacks, to back fists, to even various types of kicks. But the baseline is off the front punch, because the theory is that the straight punch is probably one of the hardest ones to deal with, just because it's a straight line and it's fast,
Yeah.
right? So if you can get around that, then figuring out most other things will be easier from that point. So each combination has its own idea. Some of them are combinations based on the Chinese animals. Some of them are based off of just you know uh, dynamics, right? And physics and things like that, where you're trying to figure out, sometimes like geometry even, right? Just figuring out the right angle, right position, where the balance is or isn't. It's a lot of different things, right? And some of those combinations are actually paired with each other, right? So yeah.
Awesome. I mean, when I started training, of course, we used to call them spot fights, but of
Hmm.
course, we changed the terminology. We call them one steps. It seems like that makes
Yep.
more sense. Somebody
Sure.
just stepping forward, throwing a punch. I mean, we went from just learning like basics, then we
Yep.
went on to doing our own, and then went to going to rapid fire, which is we just react to the punch. So
The
that's
Japanese martial arts work the same way, where they have one step to five or five step kumite, right? And then they have randori, which is freestyle.
mm,
You know,
yeah,
right? Judo has randori, ninjutsu. I also did ninjutsu for a long time. I was with the Bujinkan for probably about between 16 18 years, right? So,
eh, and then of course you approach it, but you after you deal with your bully, and of course you're doing
hmm.
all these wonderful things, and of course you went on to go on to your black belt tests, right? Or
Oh,
what's your
not right
stuff?
away. No, no,
Okay,
no. I had to, so because I was paying for all this stuff myself, right? My parents didn't have the money for this. I paid for everything out of paper routes, odd jobs I held over the summer, things like that. Even working in the dojo, right? So there were times when was flush enough to pay for the year's membership myself, and then other times I had to piecemeal it, right?
yeah,
Um, but I did as much as I could. So, um, I got to the black belt test and I was about 17 and I was unable to pay for the test, right? And I just now my teacher didn't tell me at the time because I didn't ask, right? I was being young and shy, right? And I said, because I didn't want to go and say, well, geez, Shufu, I can't afford to pay you, right? And he would have been nice about it, I'm sure, but it's just I didn't want to get into that situation. I didn't want to put him in a situation. I didn't know that he would be accommodating. I thought, he would just say, nope, sorry, if you have the test fee, you can't go, right? Because that's what everyone else would have done, right? I just assumed that. So I just didn't go,
yeah,
right? So I switched gears. I went 5 years, straight training with the ninjutsu, right? That was my first 5 years in ninjutsu right after that. And I'd just come back and train once a month in the Kempo, right? But there was also another reason to it too. When I look at the Kempo forms, right? I thought I had an understanding of things. Then I go to ninjutsu where they don't really have structured forms. They have a series of techniques. Like most Japanese traditional styles, they don't have long-winded forms like the Okinawans did. Everyone has to remember the Japanese adopted the Okinawan stuff in the early part of the 20th century, right? Before that, a kata was basically no more than say 3 to 10 moves on a single guy, right? And it was basically a technique, right?
yep,
And you drop guy down. Everything is a kata, kasasaga kata, hichuno kata, things like that, right? These were, just two, for all intents and purposes, they were combinations like that we taught in the kempo system. So, and they said, well, we don't practice long-winded forms because this is a fighting style, right? And I went, oh, okay. So it threw a confusion in my head. Well, why the hell do we practice the forms, right? What are the
yeah,
purposes of the forms? And then a lot of other questions started popping up. So it became also like a quest to figure out why do every martial art seems to think that they're better than the other martial art? B, why are these techniques preferred over other techniques? And C, what is the whole point of practicing katas versus, say, two-man techniques and so on? And when you're 18, 19 years old, right, you don't really have the answers to all this stuff, right? So, and the teachers I found sometimes had either very questionable or very mystical answers to these things, given the fact that we're talking like mid 80s and we haven't quite gotten to the information age yet where everybody is sharing everything. So anyone could say anything, and well, I guess that's true, I suppose, right? So I just went on this quest to go find this stuff, right? And that's where through ninjutsu I started training different systems. I went around visiting different masters in Toronto with my buddy, and I don't at that time I don't think there was a single master in the city of Toronto that we didn't know firsthand basis of. Yeah,
Oh man.
so we ran around everywhere, right? So yeah, some places were good, some places were okay. Well, let's put a big X on that one. Um, you know, so I actually saw one guy, he literally cooking, teaching out of a book.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like we're sitting at the desk and he's looking over his class doing their stuff, and he goes, "Hold on a second. Okay, guys, we're doing this." you know, okay, fair enough. He goes to teach, goes like, "Oh, I know that book." So, right. Yeah, so yeah, and we went on this big journey. We answered all those questions, and it wasn't until probably about '94, right? When I started doing Muso Jiken Yaido, right? And through Yai, right? It was a unique experience because they had kata and they were short, like the two-person kata that you do in ninjutsu or jujutsu or judo, right? Um, but there was no opponent, just like the long-winded forms, right? Because you're using a live blade most of the time, so you really can't have an opponent. So the opponent becomes more introspective. It's about you, right? It's like, oh, right. And through Yai, I began to understand why forms are practiced, how they should be practiced, the mindset behind them. So then I took that knowledge and went back to the Kempo and I reworked all the forms again with this idea in mind and went, got it, right? And from there, I was able to form a stronger basis in training. And it was around just after I got married in '95, right? And I was kind of living a rather transient lifestyle at the time. But I got married in '95 in May, so I got May 21st I got the black belt, May 27th I got married, and then June 15th I opened my school.
Mm.
So I went from being this kind of guy who was roaming the streets with not a penny to his name, scrambling and struggling to learn the martial arts, and then to suddenly I'm opening a school.
Yeah. Oh,
you know,
that's
yeah,
just definitely an interesting story. Definitely.
yeah. The wife played a large hand that she had all the money back then.
Yeah.
So,
So I kind of like see myself doing that. Of course, out of 25 years I've been to martial arts, I was all about
yeah.
just trying to be a tough guy. Like, if I was picked on a lot, but it's just it wasn't worth trying to be like that bully that picked on you. I was like, yeah, getting the knowledge of martial arts, doing katas, really
Mm,
understanding what true martial arts is.
mm,
So this is the thing I teach my students also, just I teach them that the things that we do today, like fighting, we it comes from the things that happened years ago. It's like I'm giving them a life history lesson pretty much of why we had to have katas.
mm.
And it's understand that it's mostly your muscles that you're using for katas. And then of course that will develop your skill for everything else, like sparring or even one steps and even everything else.
More so than that,
Yeah.
there are many layers to whether you call them talu or kata or pumse or teguk or whatever name you associate with them. You know, there is the fighting element for sure, right? There
Yeah.
is the fighting spirit element, which is not to be confused with the fighting itself, right? There's the internal aspects. With every form in Chinese martial arts, you have something called the six harmonies, right?
Mm.
And so the liuhe, right? Liuhe is a balance between three external, three internal harmonies. And anyone who does qigong or tai chi or any kind of Chinese martial art will know instantly what I'm talking about here. But the first three external ones basically has to do with relationships and positioning. This is your physical and outward expression of the martial art. So relationship between hand and foot, right? Knee and elbow, and waist and shoulder, right? Also ties into the three power centers: legs, waist, shoulders, right? Also, in alignment, where hands tend to line up with feet, elbows with knees, and waist with shoulders, right? In various stances. That way, you don't overextend or under or contract, right? Your movements. There's always some kind of a balance in what you do. All right. The internal aspect is going from the desire, right, the wish, right, to the intent, to the expression, right. And this is the internal side that I feel that when I watch a lot of martial arts practitioners today, uh, you know, not everyone, but a lot of them these days tend to ignore or overlook that particular part of it. They kind of skim the surface of it, but they don't dig into it you know
Yeah.
and that's I think something that's missing from the culture of modern martial arts in a lot of respects, right? Many of the old teachers still do this stuff. A lot of the new teachers may not be as well versed in it, but I also conversely know quite a few newer instructors who have been well versed in it. So kind of make sure if you're looking for a school, look for you may not know to look for this right away, but that's something to keep in mind for down the road. When you're trying to figure out where to take your training next, find someone who understands this concept. If they understand it, perfect, you're in the right place. There's also that idea that the original forms, or at least one of the earliest variations of organized forms that in Chinese martial arts, were started as meditations, right? The whole point, when you talk about Shaolin Kung Fu, a lot of the Shaolin expressions of the forms were not meant initially for combat, even though they are derived from combat, right? They were actually, meant to, be meditations where, you're sitting in the lotus position doing your chants, to Buddha, right, for hours. Right, they have some festivals where you're sitting there for like 8 to 12 hours a day doing this stuff, right? And
Oof.
what happens to your body, right? The body starts to atrophy a little bit. It gets stiff. It gets tired. Your muscles start to ache. The bones start getting compressed, and you need to move around. It's like everyone knows what it's like when they sit in an office chair for too long and suddenly have to get up and go somewhere. It's like, oh, right,
Yes.
right. Well, imagine you're sitting like this for hours and hours, right? And yes, it builds great discipline. Yes, it builds strength in certain areas, but then you're weakening other areas. So when Buddha Dharma shows up at the temple, right, bringing all his knowledge of yoga and other things with him through his travels, right, he actually came up with an idea where that, and keep in mind, he was also bringing the concept of Zen to China from India. Zen is the practice of Buddhism in every moment of your life. Right, when you're doing just plain Buddhism, okay, it's, you can sit there and meditate, and that's when you're doing Buddhism. When you walk away, you can actually kind of let that go a little bit, then come back to it later. Right, the idea of Zen. Hold on a second. Yes, I know. I'll be there in a minute. Okay. So sorry about that. So the idea of the Zen is that you're always practicing it. Right. This is even higher discipline because even when you're in your everyday life, everything you do is about being in that moment, and always expressing your teachings in that moment. Right. So he took the same idea and put it into the martial art, where okay, you're doing your meditation. Now you need to get up and move around, but it doesn't mean you have to leave that meditative state just because you get up, you're moving around. Here's a set of movements that unify mind, body, and action that will keep you that Zen mind while you're moving around, and then you come back to it and you haven't lost that energy.
Okay.
You see, right? So you can, this way your main, then what the end result is that you start transferring that into everything you do, right? It's not just in when you're doing the kung fu. Every part of your life is kung fu, right? Kung fu just means skill, right?
Yep.
Right. So when you're doing that in every aspect of your life, and then of course I hit that in Yai, right? When I started doing Yaido, right? They were talking about that a lot too, because everything is, perfection in the moment, the exact feeling, boom, just keep your mind in that zone every single time, right? Just keep it fluid. Don't stop on any one thing, right? Just keep going. You did it right this time, good. Shelve that, move to the next one, boom, good. That's perfect for that moment, good. Okay, this movement right here, bang. Okay, that's good for that moment. Oh, this one's so great, fine, shelve that, right? You're always in the moment, right? Never
Yeah.
stopping, right? Always seeking that gradual progression, ups and downs, but progression, you know. So that's the Zen mind, is to keep that discipline going all the time,
Yeah.
right? So that's really, in my understanding to date, is the highest level of doing any kind of form, you
Mm.
know. right? Everyone starts with the fighting. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Let's kick. Yeah. But this stuff takes many more years to get yourself to the maturity that where you can actually appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
And to do so, now here's the trick: to do so without falling overtly into the art side, right? So that you become too artistic and you lose the fighting element of it, right? I've seen that happen too, where guys become too zen and then they lose contact with what made that form work in the first place. You know,
Yeah.
so you have to be able to maintain the combat effectiveness, right? You have to maintain the muscle and body control. You have to maintain the mental and spiritual discipline at the same time,
Um,
which is the benefit of form. So whenever I hear some of these guys in I guess what we would call the more functional fighting areas and stuff, and the modern martial arts arenas, and they say, "Oh, forms are worth garbage." That just tells me you're not there yet.
yeah.
You're good where you are now. That's fine. You're not there yet. you know.
So basically, with this, it's like it seems like you are more controlled with your techniques when you're meditating.
Well, I mean, it's when you are, when you are unified in your intent, your action, and your expression, and so on, right? Everything happens as it needs to happen, right? Imagine when you're trying to tell a joke, but you're not comfortable with it, right?
Yeah.
And the punchline seems and your delivery is right. But if you tell that joke like it's natural and comes off you in the moment, and it just kind of when you're in that situation and someone says something, then you come up with a great joke and you just kind of bang, you put it out there, and it's in that moment and everything feels right and everyone gets it and they're laughing, right? That's the energy we're trying to capture all the time.
Yeah.
you know be in the moment.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like what I do sometimes. I kind of like try to say an ironic joke, and then just somebody gets it. Usually, when I say, I don't always say happy birthday. I say like happy season premiere. It's like, yeah, see, right there.
Yeah, there you
It's
go.
like
Good.
it's like you don't, almost like you don't know what I'm saying, but you say it's,
No.
you get it when I say it, happy season premiere. It's like it's your birthday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
George Carlin was very good at this kind of thing. I've always admired him as a comedian for that. Right? Yeah, how are you doing? I am not unwell, thank you.
Yeah.
you
I,
know,
All right. So
so
when you tested for black belt, I mean, was it
mm.
mostly endurance, or it's just you going over the forms?
First stand is always an endurance test, no matter
Yeah.
what. Right? No matter where I've been, I've seen it's mostly been an endurance test. Some places tend to focus a little too much on the endurance, not enough on the content. But this was very well balanced. I liked my test. All right. It was 10 people, right? And none of us had. No, sorry, it was 11 people, right? And not one of us had less than 9 or 10 years experience going on the floor. So this was a serious crowd,
Mm.
right? And we hammered the hell out of each other. It was fun.
Ah, yeah.
But all first stand tests in the Kempo systems that I've been in, have always been about, just pushing people to the edge of their limits, right? And seeing if they're not going to quit, right? You get to that point where the person about to say, I'm done, and then they say, yeah, no, I got that little extra more. That's really the crux of the test right there. Some of the tests that had hazing rituals and stuff in them, I've seen, right? That doesn't really do anything. It doesn't teach humility or anything. It's more ego based, right? But the ones that really kind of push a person's decision making paradigm, in a safe way, to going like, geez, I don't think I can do this. To, you know what, I've got a little bit extra. I'm going to throw it in there and see, and just kind of push that little extra mile. Those are the good ones. I like those tests.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of sound like my last test, my fourth degree test.
Mm,
I had to travel to Boston. Of
mm,
course, that's what our organization is. If you're going for a second hire, you travel to another school or dojo. And for
mm,
me, I went to Boston. I was going for my fourth degree, and I was testing with two other people that was going for third. And yet, I get the worst of it because I was going for the higher rank, and it was like the last physical test I had to do. And
mm.
it was like they was just pushing me, and even there was and stuff that wasn't even on the test. And I was just saying, like, I was just going for it, because
Yeah.
I was just showing them that I still got that heart, or I have that energy. And, I was like tired. I was like almost feel like I'm gonna toss my grits, but
Yeah.
I stuck with it. It's like, say, this is what I need to do. I want to get this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tests do get harder. The higher tests that I did for like 6, 7, 8, 9, right, were different because the emphasis actually became a lot more like traditional Japanese martial arts that I've done, where and I think this is a harder test. You stand in front of your panel, and they say, "You've got 5, 10 minutes to prove to us why you belong in this rank. Go."
Hmm.
It's like,
Awesome.
oh, okay, well, all right, here we go. Whether it be forms or self-defense training or theory or concepts or all of it, right? You have 5, 10 minutes, to do everything. Now, when I went for my 9 Dan in the Campo with the IKCG, I originally did not really know what I was going to be testing, right? I went down there because had recommended a friend of mine for testing for his 7 Dan, right? And they knew that I was doing some stuff combining Shaolin with Kempo, and they were curious to see what I was up to, right? So they said, "Could you come down and show us some of the things you're doing?" I said, "Sure, why not? Wouldn't mind your input. Let's go." Right. So I went down there and supported my friend and to kind of show off a little bit. Right. And so, what was supposed to be like sort of a 10-minute, 15-minute interview turned into a 15-minute interview with one of the key masters before the day before the test. And then on the day, I was between 13 10th level black belt guys, right? All ask me questions and stuff in order, right? They all took turns hammering at me, and then I had to kind of explain to them the system. It took over probably about 40 minutes to get through it, right? And at the end, they're like, "On, yeah, you keep working that. That's pretty cool." Right? So okay, thank you, because I was just kind of in the beginning of doing that at the time, right? And now I've refined it quite a bit since, and that was a lot of fun. It was great fun to do, right? And especially in front of some of these guys who I recognize many of them as being early pioneers of the Kempo world, and I'm standing in front of these guys going like, "Wow, I'm actually here with you. That's kind of cool," right? So guys you look up to, and now you're kind of in the same ballpark as them. It's really neat to see. Then I just recently, I did an examination with Songshan Chan Wu for what they call level 6. Right, in their structure, this is a group that broke away from the Shaolin Temple in the early '90s because they felt that temple was getting a little commercialized, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, so they decided to maintain what they call old frame Shaolin Kung Fu, so stuff they've been taught pretty much from like the turn of the 20th century till now, right?
Yeah.
So I got involved with these guys, and the head instructor Max in Montreal, he's a very good guy. He's good instructor. We have a very similar understanding of martial arts. So during the pandemic, we're doing lots of training. We got together a few times, and eventually turned to me one day and says, "You know what? You have all the material for level 6."
Oh.
And I went, "Okay." And he goes, "Want to challenge it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So we did it,
Yeah.
right? In their structure, there's only 8 levels, right?
Oh, okay.
They have the highest levels for their head guy, Xi Hong, and and there's like a whole bunch of sevens around the world. And then there's there's only 7 and 2 6s in Canada, right? So I make number 2, yay. um, but it wasn't really so much the positioning I cared about. It was more about just the fact that it'd been a long time since I just gone up and just done a overtly physical test,
Yeah.
right? I just wanted to make, so I went in there and just had a blast, had a hoot, just went full tilt. Let's go for it, right? Just took off the chains of being a teacher and bam, back to student again. Fun.
Oh.
you know, so, and I don't think I've always left. I don't think I ever really left being a student,
Yeah.
but I spend obviously more time teaching people than I end up having people teaching me. That's what happens when you get up there. The crowd becomes very thin. You know,
Yeah.
like climbing on Everest, there's less air. So, but at the same time, when you do get to step back down, you get to have even more fun. You go, "Oh, good, playtime."
Yeah, I mean, definitely that I can relate to that because I mean,
Yeah,
I teach a lot of classes, but at the same time, I still want to take classes. I mean, even though
yep,
I don't have to test physically, I still want to at least show my style that I could still go.
yep.
I mean, I'm not retired. I mean, I would
It's
still want
important.
to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important that instructors not get too caught up with being instructors, all the time. I mean, yes, the higher you go, the harder it is to escape that. But at the same time, if you're not not actively challenging yourself, right, you're missing out,
Yeah.
right? You know,
Uh,
so.
all right. So, what would be your favorite moment, like in martial arts? Like, is there a moment where you touch the student's heart? When you see you kind of see yourself like that in that kid's eyes, pretty much.
Well, I've seen it many times in many students. Hard to really nail one down because I've had a lot of great successes in the school. Um, you know, but if I had to pick an immediate one, I'd have to say watching my two kids go through it, just my own two kids, right? They started when they were 5 years old each, right? Now they're in their 20s, right? And they're fourth degree black belts respectively, right? And they're doing, they've just started the internalization process, which is what I think 4Dan is. It's the,
Yeah.
where you should be, sort of going from, you're no longer just a student. Third Dan is last your student ranks. 4Dan is your internalization period, and then 5Dan is when you've achieved a certain degree of internalization, so you're able to form more ideas, right? So they're kind of in that phase right now, and just watching them go through that 4Dan thing, and kind of watching how they learn to express the art in their own way, right? Not just following my dictates, my teachings, or the teachings of other people I've involved with them, but watching them formulate their own concept and understanding of that very same teaching, and then expressing it, all right, is really cool to watch. So I really enjoy that, but I also enjoy the success of all my students because everyone grows in their own way, right? So I can't pick any one particular thing because they all have done something cool with their training, and knowing that I had a hand to play in that is also very cool,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's always good to at least touch that student's heart, and then next year, one day, you see him all grown up, and then it's like,
Oh,
it's like
yep.
it's like you see him, it's like, hey, I was your former instructor. You remember me? And then he's like, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
And now I'm teaching because we become a generational school, right? I'm now teaching their kids.
Uh,
Well, yeah, actually, to be more clear, my current instructors underneath of me are teaching their kids.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but still involved with me. So, and that's really cool too. I even got some, cases where I have my original student, training with me, and their kid training with my junior instructors. Right. So, and then eventually they'll match up at some point.
Oh man, awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
this is definitely amazing stories that you're telling. It's like really, it's like I can see myself doing it all over again, just how I started. I
Well, that's martial arts is about the journey.
yeah.
It's always about the journey, right?
Yeah.
So,
All right. So speaking of the stirring of this podcast, we reached our
mhm.
hidden dojo part of the podcast. And this is where I'm gonna ask a serious question. This is almost like toward a pop culture. All right. So usually the first question I usually ask is, what's the best advice you ever gotten?
Mm, well, that goes on many layers, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
On the business end, the best advice I ever gotten was when I was trying to decide whether I wanted to go with a billing company or not. Right? And it formulated my decision making for the rest of my professional career. And it was, when I was expecting some kind of, well, the pros and cons of this are. Instead, he just said, the instructor asked me, well, that all depends on what you want the relationship with your students to be. Right. So whenever you're making a decision about anything in your school, right, whether it be a curriculum change or a policy change or a culture change, you have to ask yourself, what do you want the relationship with your students to become, right? And
Yeah.
how will it impact the relationship you've already established, right? Not to say you shouldn't make the change, but you understand, right, that everything we do, because of the very personal nature of martial arts, as you get higher up, you get closer to the teacher, right? So that relationship you form is going to go through evolutions, yes, but it's also going to be guided along a certain path. And if you alter that path, it might also change that relationship a little bit with that person if you don't manage it the right way. So that was a very useful and very simple Zen piece of advice I picked up a long time ago, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. So that's in the professional side. Martially, I mean, there's too many.
Yeah, you only
you
can
know,
pick one like best
yeah,
advice, and it
yeah,
almost speak. it goes to it also comes to my next question. Of course, you're probably not going to come up with an answer with this, but the worst advice you got.
Um, well, let's see. Worst advice. Okay. Worst advice I got, and again, it comes down to business, right?
Uh,
Usually the best and worst decision always come down to how you manage the business of the school. All right. The worst advice I ever got was and I can, I'm probably might be singling myself out here a little bit, but a thing where you charge your students 20% up front so they can lower their monthly balance, right? That's one, right?
yeah,
Another, it's like, I get it. You want to get paid faster, but,
yeah,
at the same time, you don't want to give up your monthly balances. I understand that. But at the same time, it just for where I am, it doesn't work. Right,
yeah,
for where I was, it wasn't. If I tried to implement it, it almost sunk me. So I had to flip back to my, I had to go back to what really did work me. And I think the best advice I can give somebody is, don't let all these business gurus tell you how to run your school. You can go to them for advice and see what they have to say. Don't listen to them unless you feel that advice actually has relevance to you in your area. Take
yeah,
what they learn and Bruce Lee the information, right? Take what works and keep it, and shelve the rest until it either becomes
yeah,
useless or gains relevance later, right? But don't just do what someone tells you just because. Right.
yeah.
Never get into a situation. This is the bad advice, the worst advice I've ever heard in business of martial arts. Never get into a situation where you're charging multi-year memberships out front and having a third-party company holding paper on it. That's like
Oh
saying,
boy.
if I close my business, you're still paying for it, and I got your money, right? I mean, that's just the worst,
Oh man,
right?
that's robbery.
It
Yeah.
is. And when I was pitched that idea on how to run a school, I looked at that person and said, dude, I'm going to say to you right now, thank you very much for your time. Goodbye. And I hope you don't get arrested.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Uh, all right. Next
so
question. How would you reward yourself? I kind of call this the guilty pleasure.
like, how would I award myself?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the context.
I mean, usually like say most people are like on a healthy diet and then they say they kind of slip in a pizza slice of pizza or ice cream or like pretty much like that.
Well, oh, I mean, you can't be, you can't be stoic all the time.
Yeah.
Right? We're human beings, right?
Yeah.
There are moments where we like to pat ourselves on the back, right? It's okay to pat yourself on the back once in a while. If you know you did something well and did something right, then
Yeah.
it's okay to acknowledge that you did something right. And I've done things that are right. And at the same time, I also feel necessary to acknowledge what we did wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And there's things we do wrong all the time because we're people. The idea here is that, it's okay to reward yourself and it's okay to reprimand yourself, right? But don't get hung up on those ideas,
Yeah.
right? If you anticipate too much, you'll get anxious, right? And
Yeah.
if you are regretful, right, then you're going to be depressed, right? So to maintain a state of happiness and balance in life, it's best to acknowledge the comings and goings of these things, but realize that they're just steps on the path of growth. So, I will say that I've done a lot. If I do something really good, I'll feel good about that. I'll say, yeah, I did good today. Right, tomorrow's a new day.
Yep.
I won't be riding that wave tomorrow because I'll be looking for the next thing I have to do.
Yeah. I
So yeah,
understand. Yeah.
I understand that. As a say, I have another name, Xian Feng. Right, Yan Feng is the name given to me by the Shaolin Temple. I'm a disciple of the head abbot of the temple. All right, so as a practicing Buddhist, right, I'm constantly not trying to take an extreme of anything. Right, so yeah, right. I'm always mindful of, or at least trying to be mindful. That's the discipline, right? It doesn't always work, but we try to be mindful of the fact that we are human and we err
Yep.
and we succeed, right? Don't get, and then at the same time, we have to remind ourselves to not allow those successes or failures to become defining moments that hold us in that moment, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's like a lot of people are like don't know when to like understand that nobody's undefeated. I mean, we have to win, we have to lose, but we have to at least move forward and go to the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Okay. Next question. What famous movie would you like to be in? Like any type of movie?
I've already been in a couple.
Oh,
Um, but oh, I don't know. I mean, I was in Total Recall with Colin Farrell, right?
oh, yeah, I seen that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was one of the robots.
Oh, man, I got to find that. I got to find that part you were in.
Oh,
Like what?
you wouldn't. I don't have a casting, list in there because it's special skills extra, right?
Oh, okay, I
So,
got you.
they hire guys who are specialized in firearms and martial arts and military and stuff like that, so they play these roles so that they can be consistent. And so I was in there. I was also a border guard, but my entire scene, like the scene where they have the woman changing her heads and it's him, right?
Yeah.
I was actually in that scene, but they filmed it in two different sections of Toronto, right? Because they weren't sure
Oh,
which one was going to work better, right? And the part of Toronto I was in got cut, right?
oh,
So, but my robot scenes got in.
yeah.
So yeah. So otherwise, you would see my bald dome sitting there and staring down Colin this far away, right?
Oh boy.
So he's a good guy. I talked to him. He's all the extras are like, don't talk to the talents. Like, I'm here for a day. I'm going to talk to him, right? And he was quite cool with it. Actually, I really enjoyed talking with him. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
But and I did some movies, World War II movies with CBC in Canada here. So I was good for that. I
Yeah.
was in the military for a bunch of years, so that
Oh yeah.
I got me in those roles. But who would I like to be in? Oh, geez, I don't know. It's hard to say. Um, oh, I don't see myself as one of those super soldier type things, but you know, yeah, it's hard to say. Something funny,
Yeah.
something that's got humor to it. I like Jackie Chan stuff. Maybe I could jump in with him.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
say me like I there's like the nice side of me and there's could be like the action side of me. I could say Jackie Chan movies would be good for me. I like to be in the
you got a bit of both,
yeah.
excitement and comedy. You know,
Yeah. And
you know.
I usually tell
See,
people,
I'd like to be in a movie where the other our martial arts actor does not have an overinflated sense of himself, right? That's what I like about Jackie Chan. Even guys like Donnie Yen, right? Now,
oh Donnie, yeah.
I would like to be in with Donnie Yen if I get a chance, right? Because that guy, he's a very humble guy. I like him. You
Mm,
know, there are some actors out there who, typecast themselves into this role and then they start believing their own press, and I was like, yeah, okay,
yeah.
move on. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
probably the one movie I like to be in. I mean, call me crazy, but I like to be in Lion King.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I can really fool somebody with the voice of James Earl Jones. I do a good James Earl Jones impersonation. I mean,
Yeah, you should probably do a good Darth Vader then.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Don't do that calling your girlfriend.
Uh, all right. Okay, next question. Secret talent.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I think I kind of gave up the goat on my secret talents earlier. I am a practicing cartoonist,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So, working on putting together an anthology at the moment. It's going to take some time, of course. I'm shy a few panels, but yeah, I've been an active cartoonist since I was 9, right, and published in newspapers and magazines throughout Canada. And originally that was supposed to be my career. I even had a job for a little while with Buster Brown Shoe Company in New York. My dad used to draw comics and cartoon characters for Bata shoes, right? And in fact, if anyone knows the Bubblegummer series, I'm actually one of the 3 characters that my
Oh,
dad draws,
oh
right? So yeah, so I mean, art, like I said, art's been around my whole family. So yes, but if you guys check out my Facebook thing there, you'll see that I have a little strip I came up with called Kung Foolery,
yeah.
right? Kung Fu being the skill through time and effort, and foolery being the absurdness of which we exist in our lives, right? And that we encounter in our lives, right? It's kind of the study of of the absurdity of life, right? So I just come up with little ideas and things. One of the recent ones I put up was, if our knees bent the other way, what would a chair look like? You
Yeah.
know, so still little quips and things like that. So if anyone wants to check that out, that's fine. They can do that and see some kung foolery. I do fiddle with the guitar a little bit. I'm no good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
try, and I study Mandarin.
Mandarin.
I've been
Oh,
4 years into Mandarin, trying to understand that language. I live with my wife's Korean. I train Chinese and Japanese martial arts, and it's, the Chinese language that somehow just came easiest to me, right? It's weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just I guess like learning another language is like you have to be like really
Yeah.
committed to learning it. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to try and learn Japanese. I know that's going to be a tough
Mm.
deal, but it'd be nice to learn a little bit. Yeah,
I know enough to teach a class in it, to ask basic questions of the senseis and all, but to have a conversation, I'd be lost for sure.
yeah.
Right. Chinese, though, I'm actually getting better at the conversational side of it,
Mm.
and oddly enough, not as good giving the commands in class in it. But
Yeah,
that'll come. That'll come. Right. Because sometimes with Chinese you run into, even more so than with Japanese and Korean, you run into regional dialects, and it fluctuates. Very fluid language. You know,
yeah,
you could say something this way with this pronunciation here with this, like, all the tones are same, and in Mandarin, wherever you go, but the inflection that they place on it will be different from here to there. It's like if let's say for example, taking a guy from say the South, right, and putting him against a guy from say Boston, you know,
mm,
right? I think, where is it? Is it like Louisiana, Georgia, where they kind of get into that little southern drawl kind of thing,
yeah,
right? And then you go take the guy from Boston or New York, and they're like, get in the car, right? And then
yeah,
compare the two, it's like that,
yeah.
right? And then of course each one feels obligated to correct you on your pronunciation. So you think you're saying it right according to Beijing, but then they say, no, 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 it's like this. Like, wait a minute, where are you from? Are you from Qingdao? Okay, fine, I understand.
Oh.
you know,
Yeah.
oh, you're from Xi'an. Okay, good. Shaanxi province says it like this.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I definitely can relate to the drawing part of because I used to draw too. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish I'd get back to it. I mean, I went to school to get a degree in fine arts, and but it's gonna be a time where I get back to drawing, and I miss doing it. It's like I just got so busy with everything, and
Mm,
I just kind of lost like interest in doing drawing. But
mm.
I definitely like to get back to it because I have that creative ability too.
Well,
Yeah,
now things starts drawing like drawing a picture, right? You
yeah,
just have to. Drawing in art is much like martial arts. It's Zen, right? It's a discipline. But it's also a creative roaming of the mind that we need. It's an outlet, all right? So if you have the ability to draw, and you find need a meditation, and you're not good at sitting around humming chants, right? Then drawing is a meditation, right? Just like your forms are a meditation. It's the
yeah.
same. You enter that same state. Hours will pass, and you'll be doing this design, right? And something wonderful will come out of it, and you look at the time, and go, "Whoa, hey!" And you feel refreshed afterwards. When it's all done, you feel refreshed because look what I just did. Ah, you pin that up, and then you go to the next thing. You
Yeah.
know, yeah,
All right. Next question. Of course, you
yeah,
already told you already met a celebrity doing filming.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I've met quite a few. Yeah.
what would be your dream celebrity encounter? Like someone you haven't met
Oh,
yet.
someone I haven't met yet. Okay. I really would have liked to have met George Carlin, but he's dead.
Yeah.
I guess Donnie Yen would have to be, because I really would like to touch base with that guy.
Yeah.
You know, um, he's definitely a guy that feel I would have a good time with, and that he definitely seems to appreciate tea. I'm a bit of a tea nut, so you know I like to share tea with people. I actually learned the Chinese tea ceremony, so when I have discussion meetings with my students, we have a tea ceremony.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
yeah, it's fun. You get to share. You can have all different types of tea, and we just kind of show them how to do it. I got hooked on these things when I went over my many trips to China. I always go to the tea shops and do the tea ceremonies,
Yeah.
even though they're for tourists. I don't care. I like the tea.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of got started drinking green teas, like
Mm.
but I'm trying to get away from all them sugary drinks, like all
Well,
that. Yeah.
if you want a good one, my personal favorite is a branch of oolong tea, which is called Tieguanyin. Right now, Tieguanyin is more. I think it's more like a spring to summer tea, but it still tastes pretty good in the winter. Right? Yeah.
Uh, definitely my celebrity encounter would be Jackie Chan. I mean, I would like to
Mm,
meet him.
of course.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, that would be a good one for me as well. Because, like I said, I wouldn't mind appearing with the guy, right? But just to say hi and say, hey, good work,
Yeah.
right? So I do enjoy actors that don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I used to just get to go to these Comic Cons, definitely
Mm,
when the before the pandemic struck, I see all these
yeah,
celebrities, I just don't want to treat them like they are like they just like they have a lot of money. I just treat them like regular people.
yeah.
It's like that's what they're
Well,
pretty much.
well, that's the key. And there's I don't know if you're familiar with the martial artist Fred Villari, right?
But
Now, Fred Villari is a personality, right? He's a really strong, charismatic individual, and you can't. When I know a lot of people rip him, but when you stand in front of him, you can't help but like the guy, right?
yeah,
And I recognize that Valaria was oddly distant with a lot of the people. I mean, he was polite and stuff, but he kept a barrier, right? Where for all the people that kind of groveled and scraped, oh, Master Valaria, bow, bow, oh, kind of did the kowtow, and he was very polite and respectful of everybody, but kept the barrier. The ones that got closest to him were the ones who went, "Hey, Mr. Valaria, how are you doing? Nice to meet you." Right? Just like you would anyone else,
yeah,
right? He seemed to respect people that respected him as a person, not just as the great martial artist Fred Villari, right? And so that got me to thinking about other actors and prominent people as well. And I'm like, you know what? I bet you they're about the same thing, right? And sure enough, I was right, because when I met guys like Dan Aykroyd, Robin Williams, I actually sparred Dan Aykroyd,
oh,
yeah, and there was who else? Geez, he was in the D-Up with me. I'll come back to me on that one. But I met a whole bunch of guys. So I said I met Rob Williams. I met with him. Geez, I really want to mention this guy's name. Escapes me a moment. But I met all these guys, and the thing is, you know, that's why I can talk to them. You shake their hands. You say
yeah,
hi. Right? Treat them like a person. Don't treat them like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm meeting. You see
yeah,
that all the time. They just want to be known as people. You know, so the same thing. Same with Colin, right? Say, Colin, how's it going? I asked him, what, because we were going back to first position so many times, like, it must have been like 18 times we went back to first positions during this one shoot, all right? And I said, what's the worst move you ever had for first positions? And he totally engaged in the conversation. And boom, oh God, I have to tell you, right? It was, I was playing Deadshot, and in the Daredevil movie, right?
oh, yeah,
Right? And I said, why is that? He said, well, first off, the weather wasn't working. The patch on his head with the bullseye thing kept falling off, right? And they couldn't just get the angles right. The lights were gleaming off everything the wrong way. The ground was wet from water, right? So he just gave me this litany of reasons why this film wasn't working for him. Right? And it was just great to to hear him talk. You know, so yeah, I think and that all that is reflective upon myself. It's like, okay, if I ever make it that big, right? Then that's a reminder. You know, keep it real.
yeah,
You know, just keep it real. You know, be respectful for people
yeah,
and keep it real. You know, everybody's a person.
yeah. So, yeah, including Chuck Norris. I mean, he's a wonderful guy too. Yeah,
I'd go and shake that man's hand and say, thank you for everything, man. You're awesome.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. And by the way, here's a beer.
yeah, yeah.
I'm,
All right.
I'm assuming he's a beer guy.
Well, I don't know. I never seen Drink a Beer, but it's like I know he's like real approachable, but you have to give him his space
Oh, of
because
course.
yeah,
Yeah, you don't want to smother the guy. Oh, can I have your autograph?
yeah. No, I got too many of his autographs. He's definitely
Yeah.
signed my black belt certificate, so that's enough autographs for me.
Very good.
Yeah, yeah.
That's nice.
All
So,
right, all right. 10 years from now, where do you see yourself?
oh, I'm well. Hopefully, with uh, with a few more locations than I have now, possibly, but mostly doing the same thing, just getting better at it. Maybe less time on the floor, managing stuff, more time overseeing the people who are managing stuff.
Yeah.
You know, closing in on 50. So next, actually, this will be my 50th year. So
Oh,
yeah, so being on this one roaming ball in space. So
yeah,
so at a certain point, you want to kind of step away from the daily grind and just kind of nudge the daily grind.
yeah,
You know, so that. Yeah. So by the time I hit 60, yeah, I should be, probably doing less than nudging. I should have other people doing nudging for me.
yeah. Uh, yeah.
And
So
I, and I just turn up and go, yes.
yeah, I'm about 14 years away from 50. So yeah,
Yeah.
so
There you go.
I got a lot of time.
You got time.
Uh, all right. Bonus question. Favorite technique?
The one that works and the one that no one else can see.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could say, oh, I favor the roundhouse kick. Yeah, but that can be beaten. Oh, I
Yeah.
favor this type of throw, that type of throw. Yeah, that can be beaten, right? I think a better question is from favorite technique rather than would be what kind of techniques do you enjoy, right? So for me, yeah, I really enjoy throwing techniques. I like being thrown. I like doing throws, right? I really get off on throws, right? I love anything that takes another person down, right? Do I like ground grappling? Nah, yeah, okay, it's there, right? But for me, just the process of getting into that opportunity and putting the guy on the ground is fun,
Yep.
you know. So enjoyable, yes. Yeah, is it necessarily the technique I would default to in a fight? No, right?
Um,
There is no such thing, right? Because the fight, the situation determines what needs to happen,
yeah.
you know, right? And if what needs to happen is me simply just saying, yeah, whatever, buddy, I'm out of here. Or if he's too late and he's already committed, then Zen has to take over, and that is the moment that you move in. So whatever you do is what you got to do. So you can't say, well, my favorite thing to do is,
Yeah.
right? You know, especially if people know that if you actually make that your favorite thing and practice that to be your favorite thing, that becomes your default action. So if someone figures that out, you're toast.
Yeah.
It's better. So it's better not to have a favorite thing, but it's good. It's nice to have, let's say, what kind of practice do you enjoy the most? Yes, I
Yeah.
enjoy my forms, and I enjoy throwing people, and I enjoy being thrown. Right, that's a very important component. A lot of people, don't like being thrown. I love being thrown. Because it's boom, practice the break fall, practice escape, practice
Yeah.
get the satemi in there. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah. I definitely like to be thrown at me, but I like doing the rollouts. I mean, usually
yep.
if I trip, I can catch myself and do a rollout because I'm
Mm,
very quick about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all good.
I,
You know.
can you think of a famous quote that you that kind of motivates you?
Mm. Well, one I've often given to my students is those who think about things are often passed by those doing them.
Hmm.
Some people find that a little facetious and maybe slightly arrogant, but the way I see it is that's absolutely true because how many people say, "Well, I'm thinking about doing this, I'm thinking about this," but they never really get it done, or they start it, "Well, I'm thinking about going this way with it, thinking about going that way with it," but they never really get past that thinking stage,
Yeah.
right? The three things of success, right? Think, talk, do. Right. Well, if you're still stuck in the thinking aspect and you haven't even got to the talking aspect, then you're never going to make it to the do aspect, right? And the person who does get past that point, those points, is going to be the one who succeeds. So it's kind of a life maxim.
Yeah. When I think about that, I think of me. I was
Hmm.
thinking about this podcast because I went to a podcast con like years ago. It's like I was want to see what's this all about. I took a seminar and how to be a podcaster, and that's like I thought this would be pretty hard, but it's like it's nice and simple. You're just basically talking about what comes to mind, and then I was like thinking about it, get some ideas, and of course, it went from going like the talk, because I'm part of a podcast group. And then of course, and from there, here I am, have my own podcast right now. And I'm talking to you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Testament to the quote.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, say good on you, right? And that in itself will also reflect that energy, that what you did here to that same energy used to achieve that is going to be the same that's going to get you to your 5 down. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
Right. So
All right. So before we kind of park the car and kind of get out, what would be the last thing you like to tell listeners out there?
well, I mean, if they're new members or new martial artists, stick to the path. I mean, mastery is often at times just staying on the path, right? Wherever that path takes you, right? Maybe not necessarily a straight line, but just stay on that path, and but don't let the path necessarily dictate what you do. You have to nudge it. You got to guide it, just like you're sailing a ship. You got to point the bow in the right direction, right? You have to have an idea where you want to be, you know, but stay on the path, right? I had no idea that I was going to be able to achieve what I did when I was much younger, right? I knew I wanted to be a martial arts instructor since I was 14. I had no idea how I was going to get there. I went through, careers in, food industry to, you know, landscaping to, law enforcement to military, and then finally I ended up, boom, suddenly martial arts was there. But throughout all those zigzags I had to do, I always had my mind and my heart set on one day becoming a martial arts instructor. And then just at one point, all the pieces came together, and I realized that everything I did was there to set me up for that, right? And when I went off to go, boom, I was just running. So for 26, this will be 27 years now, I've been running my school, and it's just been growing and evolving. I'm still growing and evolving it because now, each time I achieved one of those landmarks, I just set another one further ahead. It's one of the reasons why I feel we have the belt system in the correction. The belt system only started in like 1947, basically, right? And they're not this ancient thing, right? The belt systems are there because we want to set a big goal to the black belt. This is for the students, right?
Yeah.
For teachers, I have a different reason, right? Here's the goal of black belt. Now, when you're a white belt, you don't see this goal very clearly. You just go, wow, that's kind of far off, right?
Yeah.
But we have all these other degrees in the middle, right? So you set your first goal for like say 3 belts ahead, right? Okay, little mini goals in between. Boom. Okay, achieve this. Now I'm intermediate. Okay, boom. Now in advanced. Okay, and as you get closer, that black belt becomes more and more a real thing, right? And then when you get there, it's like, oh, geez, what do I do now? Well, you set your goal in the 5th degree black belt, third, second, third, fourth, all the way up. Then the distance between those goals gets longer because your discipline is now stronger. So you stay the path, right? And you achieve your next milestones until you hit the big goal. And then what do? Oh, crap, I got to set another goal.
Yep.
And it just keeps going like that. And when you get to there, it's like, well, okay, I guess I just define a new goal,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So, and then you just go through the process again, stay the path, and sometimes it goes this way, sometimes it goes this way. Doesn't matter. Take the path, guide it towards this one point.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like building a house. I mean, you start off in the basement, and then of course you want to make sure the base is strong before you go into the first floor. So that's usually what I tell my students. Like that's the start of your journey to build a house. You got to make sure you have a good base. So if that
Yep.
base is not strong, you know what happens to the house. It
Absolutely.
falls. Yeah.
And unless you build an elevator, you ain't going straight up. You got to walk stairs.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
All right.
So,
Okay, thank you very much for joining me, Tim. It was a great
yep.
conversation, and of course, listeners will definitely be um, have their ears open to this journey, and hopefully they'll learn from this as well as anything else. Hey.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. If anyone benefits from anything I say, then cool. I'm happy to contribute.
All right. Okay. For those who are just tuning into my new podcast, tune into my previous episodes on the bicbpradio.com, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And I'll see you next time for another episode here at the Kickpod Dojo. This is your host, TJ Williams, bowing you out. All right. Awesome.
Yep, cool. All righty. Cool. Well, I'm glad that worked for you.
Yeah.